Hi again. My name is Mauricio Neuber, an associate professor of psychology, University of Brasilia, Brazil. How are you? I hope you are well, with health, peace, and dreaming, because dreaming allows our life to be possible. So, in our first meeting, I discussed my book, Hypnosis in the Realm of Design. In the last meeting, I presented some reasons why I wrote this book. And now, I'd like to introduce you to the philosophical dimension that inspired this book. When we speak on hypnosis, when we talk about hypnosis, frequently it is associated to the mystery, to supernatural, to elusiveness, imagination. And this is a very curious thing, because in the last 30 years, we have a very strong body of research, very trustable research that confirmed the hypnosis, proved it is for example, a good method for depression, chronic pain, anxiety, and other problems. And meta-analysis, statistics, even based on evidence, research based on evidence. So we can see and consider hypnosis as a scientific practice, which is used worldwide. As I had the opportunity to present a little of this universe in the book I wrote with Professor Antoine Bioy, Hypnosis in Academia, but I will explain a little of this book in other moment. And with all of this scientific data, why hypnosis remains as a mysterious problem? In some way, perhaps we have a cultural and historic reason. If you observe, for example, in the cinema, in the literature, there is many books and movies related to hypnosis. Star Wars, The Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter. In the past, Dracula, The Doctor and the Monster, and many others could be related to hypnosis. Professor Antoine Bioy, I cited, have a very interesting work when he discusses how the idea of hypnosis related to the mystery is very present in Western cultures. But beyond the historic and artistic process, we can also discuss this question from a philosophical dimension. And so, for example, if we consider Charles Peirce, who is one of the most important authors in this book, he had a very good text work named The Seven Metaphysical Systems, in which he didn't discuss hypnosis, but he discussed the philosophical systems. And he wrote that Cartesian paradigm, or Cartesian thinking, doesn't consider the qualitative dimensions of reality related to feelings, to creation, to imagination, and other qualitative dimensions, but only the relative and concrete events secondness, a person, a phenomenological category, governed, controlled by some kind of law, a general law, and in a very mechanical sense. This is important to conceive, because Cartesian movement, as expressed also by John Dewey, established a divorce, a very emphatic separation between objectivity and subjectivity, differently from, for example, the medieval authors who inspired Peirce. And this as a consequence of Cartesian paradigm, we have also the divorce between ontology, things, and epistemology, objects. So this group of separations, divorce, promoted by Cartesian paradigm, lead one to consider human experience as something to be avoided by science. It could not be studied scientifically, at least in principle, in thesis. And this had a very strong consequence to understand hypnosis, because the unique form to study human experience would be through other dimension, which were in stability. For example, brain process. For example, something from human cognition the researcher could measure, and so. But hypnosis is very different. Hypnosis is elusive in its experience, and in this sense, when we observe in this book, for example, Puisségur and Mesmer, Franz Anton Mesmer, had a lot of difficulties with academics because their methods could not prove the reality of mesmerism and somnambulism. And after many years, still in 19th century, we could have a different thing through Sigmund Freud, the great therapist, physician, and the creator of psychoanalysis. And Freud created something very interesting. In the beginning, he was passionate by hypnosis, but Freud was still very influenced by Cartesian thought. In what sense? Because Freud tried to establish objective data in human mind, and he believed in the beginning that hypnosis could promote this, but he was deceived because he could not separate fact and artifact, and so he could not obtain trustable witness, objective data through hypnosis. In the beginning, he created psychoanalysis, and he thought he could achieve this data, especially because he believed psychoanalysis should be more effective than hypnosis. He created an association between efficacy and scientificity, scientific methodology. But as demonstrated by many authors, especially Leon Chertok and Isabel Stengers, he failed because at the end of his life, he perceived that he was wrong. The same problem he criticized in hypnosis, for example, the substitution of the symptom, the return of the disease, neurological disease, the resistance is still worse. He observed also in psychoanalysis. So after Freud and the rise of anesthesia, of chemical anesthesia, hypnosis was considered in ostracism, because in academic milieu, a serious man, a serious researcher, would not be well considered if he was interested in hypnosis. But this story would receive a new chapter through the magnificent work of Milton Hyland Erickson, a North American psychiatrist who not only take again hypnosis, but reinvented it. Erickson was not interested, at least apparently, to obtain objective data. He was interested in access the subject's world, in navigate through unconscious waters, and to foster, to promote a human growth, a human growing through hypnotherapy. And Erickson didn't use it as a laboratory as the scientific procedures of his time. Erickson didn't try to generalize his data into a theory. Erickson didn't establish the control of the influences, but he developed a form of approach the subject and inducing trance through storytellings, through the play words, through repetitions, rhythmic repetitions, through drama, comedy, surprise. He used in this method exactly the human dimensions which were ignored or disconsidered, not considered by the traditional scientific model. So we can understand his work was not only innovation but a hope of new possibilities of inquiry. And in my point of view, I think he was, perhaps without knowing this, he was also a designer. Thank you very much.